Last Friday, I was at a place called Arcade Club in Bury in Greater Manchester, and that's Europe's largest retro video games arcade. Although for me it's not retro, for me it's nostalgia, because I grew up in the 1980s. And it struck me that there is this real desire at the moment for 1980s and early 90s culture, what there was of it. The recent Stephen King film It is now set in 1992. The incredibly successful series Stranger Things is set in the 1980s. And even the upcoming film Ready Player One, which is set in the future, draws heavily from 1980s pop culture. But it also struck me there's a lot from the 1980s that I remember that doesn't seem to make it into the films. There were a lot of riots, there were a lot of strikes, endless power cuts, everything was fucking deep fried. Also, every adult smoked, it was almost compulsory, and they all used to smoke around kids regardless of their age. You could be 3 years old and have some adult just blowing smoke at you going, it's fucking good for him, it'll stop him growing up, gay, because that was frowned upon in the 80s as well. There were only 4 TV channels in the UK, but that was a good thing because it turned out that almost every TV presenter from the 80s was a fucking paedophile. What else did we have in the 1980s? Oh, AIDS. AIDS was extremely popular. Oh, and pornography was everywhere. And this is because the internet had not yet been invented, so people got their porn from magazines. So you couldn't go out for a stroll on a Sunday afternoon without a few random pages blowing down the street from Escort or Mayfair or High Society. Always thought High Society was an odd name for a porn mag, because if you see a picture of a woman getting fucked by 4 different blokes, my thought isn't, oh, they look like classy people. But if you were too young to experience the 1980s the first time round, don't worry, we're about to have another go at a really major part of it, because Vladimir Putin has been re-elected as president of Russia, so it looks like we're going to do the Cold War again. Fucking yes! That's retro. And if you're too young to know what the Cold War was, it was a period in history when the United States and the Soviet Union threatened each other constantly with nuclear weapons and somehow dragged the rest of the entire fucking world into it. Now, I grew up in the east of England, and I remember being close to a nuclear fallout shelter and this constant drone of American warplanes coming overhead. And if you wonder why there were American warplanes in the east of England, well, strategically it makes more sense to have your nukes in Europe, and secondly, those things are fucking dangerous. The Americans don't want them on their fucking front door. Also, early 90s culture, just a thought, Terminator 2, fantastic film, and if you grew up watching that film, you were scared of the same thing that everyone else was, when the fucking atom bomb goes off. So youngsters, rest assured, soon you'll have the thrill of going to bed worried that you're going to be wiped out in a nuclear explosion. Because those pesky Ruskies, apparently they've started poisoning people in the UK again, and they're boasting that their new nuclear missiles can't be shot down. And what's really worrying is the bit of the Cold War I remember, you had President Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, and they were both fairly level-headed. And now we've got Vladimir Putin, who's a cut-out-and-keep fucking Bond villain, and Donald Trump, who isn't the most intelligent man on earth. But what I would like to say, in case anyone from Russia is watching this, congratulations to President Putin on his free and fair re-election to office. And I take my tea, white, with 2 sugars and a lack of polonium-210.